Dolly Parton has some smart advice that her mother gave her. This is the focus group.
They're all business, except when they're not. It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Welcome to the Focus Group. John Nash here with Tim Bennett. Find us at focusgroupradio.com. All our media is housed there, including our Tuesday podcast, TFG Unbuttoned. And a big thanks to our partner here, Deep Discount. We're going to be talking about them later in the show. But first up, we have some banter, then our Deep Discount segment, a little break, business birthday, and then some shop talk, which is going to be looking at Dolly Parton and some advice that her mom gave her, which we both like and think should be a part of your business advice book. So welcome to the new week.
Hello, Mr. Nash. How are you? Did you get snow over the weekend?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Okay, so upstate we had about 6 inches of snow. It was hard to say because the wind blew it all around, and I didn't bother shoveling on Saturday. It was an all-day kind of thing. And I knew that if I shoveled, it would just blow back to where I had removed it. So I got up Sunday morning early, went out. It was like 20 degrees or something. And you know how after it snows, I've said this before, it's super quiet. So it was really quiet out, and you could only hear like the wind in the pine trees. And I shoveled the driveway and the patio, and the car was covered like it had been raining before it turned to snow. So there was an ice sheen over the car. So I smartly backed the car down the driveway to where the sun was hitting it and was going to hit that part of the driveway for a couple hours. And even though it was 20, it never got above 28, that car, everything melted off it just from the power of the sun. And as I was shoveling, I thought I'm kind of depressed because this might be the last time I shovel in 2022, and I actually don't mind shoveling. So I'm not going to do everybody's driveway, but you know.
Come on, you don't mind shoveling?
Not at all. It's a whole body workout.
Oh, for God's sake!
I tried doing it with the left and the right, and by the time I'm done, I come in, I feel great, and yeah. And this is with me tweaking my back. I tweaked my back on Friday somehow. I was at the gym. I think I know what I did. And my back was sore on Saturday, and I thought, oh, I'm not going to be able to shovel. I was like obsessed with this. But
does Bob shovel?
No. Oh, yeah, well, he did. He shoveled a path to the wood pile. That's about it. That got blown over. But no, his idea of shoveling, by the way, is to just shovel from the door to the car. But there's a patio, there's a driveway, there's all this stuff you got to get the snow off.
Well, you don't have to shovel your driveway. You got an all-wheel drive car. Get in, get out.
You know why? Do you know why I shovel the driveway?
Why?
So years ago, I had that theory too. I thought, who cares about the driveway? It's gravel. Well, one year we had a snowstorm and we pulled back and forth a couple times. Then it got a little milder. Then it froze again. And all the compacted snow from where the car had driven turned into like solid ice. I slipped on it a number of times. Bob slipped on it. And it was there till the spring, these ice trails, these ice treads. So I just vowed never to have the ice on the driveway again.
Well, that makes sense. I thought it might have melted.
Also, our neighbor Todd stopped by one day and he said, you guys want to make sure you shovel that driveway. You have to look like you're here all the time. House needs to look lived in. J-Tim.
That's true. My father would have said, in case you need an ambulance to come in, or you need, or a fire truck or something.
You're right. First responders, right? They need to get to the house.
Yeah.
Did you have any stuff down there?
We had a trace of snow. I took out the broom and swept the porch, or swept the step. It was not even it was just a little dusting. It mostly rained though. It rained like crazy.
Okay.
But we didn't, no, and it's supposed to be in the 70s here this week. So, and everything started budding.
Yep. It's going to hit 60 something this week. I'm actually getting ready to take the bike out for the second time this year outside, I think, which will be nice. But, I've told you this before with me and cycling. Here in town, there's really nowhere to go. The route that I do, it's a training ride. I've done it, I think, hundreds of times.
Are you bored yet with it? With the ride?
Oh yeah, totally. And my friend Adam says try to make it something else. Like ride and make sure your heart rate stays no higher than 135, or ride at cadence of this. And it does change. It's kind of like the river when you were rowing, right?
Yeah, I got bored. But can't you just throw? Or I remember early on you used to put the bike on the car and go maybe 20 miles out the city and do a ride. You don't do that anymore?
I do, and the closest thing for that would be Bear Mountain State Park, which is up the Hudson River, and it's a cool place to go riding. But for me, frankly, upstate, when we're upstate, that's where I get these great roads, and you're riding along, and you'll see sheep and cows and and the pigs, and farms. So, and no one's on the roads. I mean, our
How are your
friends
eyes when you're riding?
How are my eyes?
Yeah, can you see well when you're
Yep.
when you're riding your bike?
Fine. And
So
I
you don't
just,
have
in
any
fact,
issues yet.
No, my mom actually gave me a little gift recently, and I used it to buy a new pair of cycling shades. Chromatic, like eyeglasses, they go from clear to dark, and that's the key, because when you're riding, you might go from a sunny road to sun dappling and tree covered, and suddenly it's dark. And believe me, I have hit holes on that bike that almost threw me off of it just because I couldn't see them. So even we talked about this on TFG Unbuttoned earlier in the week. Even with cars and potholes, bikes have the same problem.
Right. Yeah, well, the roads are dirty, and particularly after the winter, so you have to be careful with all the debris in the roads.
For bikes, the worst thing in the world is something called a slot hole. Do you have slot holes? They're rectangular potholes, and they're dangerous for bicycles and for your feet. I have a friend who stepped in a slot hole and still is having recovery issues from an ankle that he actually broke because of
Yeah.
it. So
I stepped on a pine cone the wrong way this week. Same thing. Twisted my foot.
Were you out getting Spike?
I was, because Spike likes to run out to the front, and then he pushes it. He goes right out to the edge of the road. And so I went to go get him, and I stepped on a pine cone. All the pine cones are falling. Or they have fallen, haven't been picked up. I don't know what the issue is. I don't know when pine cones fall. I think they fall in the fall, but maybe
Yeah,
I
they
don't
do.
know.
Yeah, and that's or they do, and then they lay there, and that's how they become trees someday, I suppose. Bob
Yeah.
wants to, we have these huge white pines along our driveway, and every year some kind of storm comes through and damages them. But the amount of needles we pull off the lawn in the fall is phenomenal. And Bob one day said to me, "We should bag these and bring these down to Rehoboth."
Yes, you should.
Could you imagine?
Richard
the
and I
wagon
had this
train of-
discussion. Well, you know how much we spend on pine needles a year?
You buy them?
Yeah. It's over
Well, how much do you
$1,000.
How much
$1,000
for pine needles?
for the pine straw. Yeah. It has to look a certain way, John, and they have to come from a certain place.
With the face, if you're not watching on YouTube, you've just missed the kind of like the Tim nod, which is got to be from a certain place, got to look a certain way.
Well, there was a discussion about it this week that maybe we would, put stone on front. And I said, well, who's going to pick the weeds out of the stones?
Uh-huh.
And I don't think that will look very nice, or nobody wants to cut grass. So pine needles it is, I think.
I think you guys have a good solution. I'm shocked that you have to pay for it, because if you saw the amount that we pulled off our yard in not one but 3 rakings between the end of August and the beginning of December, you'd be amazed. It's a huge amount of pine needles. I mean, we could cover your entire thing, no problem.
Well, we get, I think, something like 30 bales of them.
30 bales? They
Yeah.
bale the pine needles? I mean, they come
Oh, yeah,
in
it's like hay. It's like hay.
Really?
Yeah. It's a big thing down here, in the South.
I need
Ish.
to talk to Bob about this. We might make enough to like buy some groceries or something.
You should sell them if they're clean, though. You can't have all junk mixed in them. They have to be pure. That's the issue.
No. When the way these trees are and where they're situated, the grass, the needles only sit on grass, and when you rake it up, you do get a little bit of dead grass in there, but it's mostly pine needle. I know this because this is my job. Pine needles are my
Well,
job.
maybe I'll have to come up and get pine needles.
So,
It's good to keep them down, by the way. They keep mosquitoes away.
They do, and they're acidic as well, if I'm not mistaken, which keeps the weeds down too.
Yeah.
Right?
I'd keep them. Why you sweeping them up? Leave them down.
You should, Tim. If you saw how bad they were,
Really?
they cover the patio to the point where if you don't touch them, you could literally slip and fall on a dry bed of pine needles because
Oh,
there's just
wow.
so many of them. Yeah.
Jeez.
Anyway, let's move on and say what caught your eye this week.
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
So I picked this because I didn't know that there was, here we are in 2022, and we're only now getting around to the fact that condoms weren't necessarily made for anal sex.
I was wondering. Okay,
I don't know if you knew that or not.
Well, when I put the deck together, I saw this headline, and I wasn't sure if it was referring to this, but tell everyone what you know now.
So it's a little frustrating, they say, that it's taken this long to have this kind of official endorsement. So the FDA has finally, for the very first time, approved the very first condom specifically intended for anal sex. So the U.S. Food and Drug Administration indicated that this particular condom that's made by One Male Condom is the company. It's a Boston-based global protection corporation. They've developed this condom. So they said, while the One Male Condom is not markedly different from the hundreds of other condoms on the market, it is the first that's going to be allowed to use the safe and effective use, in quotes, label for reducing sexually transmitted infections during anal sex. They said this landmark shift demonstrates that when researchers, advocates, and companies come together, they can create a lasting impact in public health efforts. So they said there's been over 300 condoms approved for vaginal sex, but there's never been one that's been approved for anal sex. Now, I assumed a condom was a condom, did you?
Same here. And I did read this article, and I was actually shocked, as you were, that they've made this differentiation, because during during the height of the epidemic,
right,
this was safe for sex. I mean, but no one ever said, oh, by the way, you could use it, but it's not, did you ever hear that?
No. So it says anal sex poses the highest risk for contracting HIV, with HIV transmission 18 times higher than that of vaginal sex. Now, I don't know how they came up with that number. And then they talked about the number of men, particularly gay and bisexual men, who account still in this day and age for about 70% of the new HIV/AIDS diagnosis in the U.S. And it's predominantly overrepresented by people or men of color, Black and Latino men. But they said, so this condom now is available in a standard, a thin, and a fitted version. And the fitted version, John, comes in 54 different sizes.
54?
Yeah. I don't know how you do that. First of all, you're not going to get shelf space at the Walgreens for that, right? Or at the CVS.
No.
So I've got to go online and look at this. I can't imagine what the 54 different sizes would be.
Neither.
I mean, I could. Right?
Yeah, well, you can play the mind game and figure it out, but how does somebody actually know, right?
I'll take 2 of the needle dicks, please. I mean, what do you or button dick? I don't know. I mean, 54 different sizes is a lot. I thought it might have been a typo, but we'll have to go back and see. They did a clinical trial of 252 men and found out that the failure rate was less than 1% for anal sex, so they're pretty happy with the results. And they hope that people are more willing to use condoms, because they said the other big issue is that people are concerned about sexually transmitted,
STDs,
right, diseases, and this would also be helpful in that too. But so there you go. We'll have to stay tuned for the sizes, because I'm sure there's going to be.
Tim, when you do some research on this, please let me know, because then we should. I wonder if you should even. I mean, you have to just buy some then, right? And I bet you there's some kind of tool online that helps you figure out your size, right?
Yeah, well, I'm looking now as I Googled it. So a girth less than 4.7 needs a snug fit. 4.7 to 5 needs a regular fit. 5.1 to 6 needs a large fit. I mean, they're going on and on and on.
I mean, they're going on and on. So we won't do it here on air, but
no,
we'll figure out our size
tuned.
Requirements.
Uh-huh.
So caught my eye this week is it's a duality. It's my pop culture blind spot meets my love of documentaries and films. And what I mean by that is this. There is a documentary short film that's up for the Academy Award, and I highly recommend it. It's 38 minutes. These are kind of hard movies to find because they're released for festivals and they're in theaters for a while, but some streamers have them. Sometimes you can pick it on get it at deep discount, for example, on packaged media, but not all short films make it that way. This film is called Audible, and it was really remarkable. And basically the film is about a high school. It follows the life of a young boy and a team of high school football players who play football at the Maryland School for the Deaf. And actually, the term audible is a double entendre because obviously we think of audible as things we can hear, but apparently, in the sport of football, audible is also a change of play in the defense ordered by the quarterback. So when they're all on the line, the quarterback may yell, he'll shout something like "Blue 42" or "Texas 29" or whatever that signal is to the team to do something. So this documentary came about by a director named Matthew Oggins, who lived about 30 miles from the Maryland School for the Deaf. It's remarkable to watch these young guys navigate playing football and being just in their world. Everybody at the high school is deaf, mostly, and they can all sign and do lip reading. But when they enter the world of the hearing, it's a whole different thing, and you get a really great thing about a great perspective on that. But I'm reading about this, and they were trying to get the film off the ground, and they eventually decided they needed to have someone attached to the film who could really move it along and be an advocate for the deaf, and that turned out to be Nal DeMarco. Now, do you know who Nal DeMarco is?
I don't.
Well, neither did I, but he is actually this really handsome male model and an actor. He went to the Maryland School for the Deaf. His brother Neil, I think, played on the football team there. I'm not sure if Neil was as deaf or not himself. But so then I looked up Nal DeMarco, and I'm like, he's been on Dancing with the Stars, and he's deaf, and he's got this career, and he's super handsome. And I just thought to myself, like, and the more I did the rabbit hole of Nal DeMarco, I'm like, where have I been? Because if someone's been on
Did you watch this film?
Yes, I did. He's not in it. He's an executive producer, so he put his name to it so that they could get funding and at presence at short film festivals. My mom and I watched it together when I was taking care of her last week, when I was staying with her for a few days. 38 minutes long. It's
so the silent
it's just
movie?
It's interesting.
Is it silent?
No, but it has you always say you don't like to read your films, so there's a lot of subtitling because you have to, obviously the kids are talking to each other in sign language, but you have to know what they're saying. So basically, I'm just recommending this short. It's an Oscar-nominated short film for this year. It came out in 2021. I believe it's on Netflix. I think it's just a really beautiful look at that world, a world that we don't know about, or at least I don't, because we can hear, and how they navigate. It's beautiful, and the young man they follow actually was born with hearing, but after I think he had meningitis when he was young. He emerged from that infection deaf, like he lost his hearing because of it. So it's just one of those, these films come, we hear about them for Oscar time, and if you're lucky, you can see it or find it. I just thought it was funny that this insanely handsome Nal DeMarco was attached to it, and turns out that he himself is a famous deaf model. So where have I been?
I have a cousin who's deaf, and I always, later on in life, wish I had learned sign language.
Do you know any of it at all?
I know tiny, maybe 5 words or something, but she would have friends over, and they would all communicate, obviously, with sign language. And she could read lips, and she could, get along with all of us. But generally, as a little kid, I didn't really, it wasn't talked about as it was some sort of handicap. But I do know, when her parents died, and it was I think it was difficult to show emotion, difficult to show emotion in some ways, of how do you say, you're sorry and all these other things. So I wish I had learned, it's not too late, but I wish I had learned sign language earlier on.
It's all throughout the film, and there's actually a couple of versions of sign language. There's American Sign Language. There's some different nationality flavors to it. But again, it was just one of those surprises. I had read about the film in a list of movies that were nominated for the Oscar this year, including animated short films and stuff like that. But these come and go, and you and I are big documentary fans, so it was just a nice insight. And then, as I delved into it, I realized an executive producer was none other than Nal DeMarco, thirst trap on internet, and
One thing I'll say for my cousin, she always got a deal on her car because I'm not paying for the radio. She'd always say she wasn't paying for the radio.
Did she honestly say that?
Oh, yes. Yep. So they would say, she's deaf, so they would take the radio off, the price of the radio. So she always got an extra bonus. I always thought it'd be something to do at a dealership. I don't need the $1,000, go in there and tell them that, you're hard of hearing, so you don't need the radio, and I want $1,200 credit or whatever they're charging for the radio. Right?
Yeah, true. All right, as many of you know, our partner here on the Focus Group is Deep Discount. We want you to shop at their site by going to ours, focusgroupradio.com. Click on the Deep Discount logo and begin your shopping experience. It's the month of March. It's a site-wide sale. Everything at the site's on sale, and they already have great prices, so it's pretty remarkable what you could pick up. And in honor of Awards Month, as we were just talking that the Oscars are coming up, we're giving away Focus Group Radio socks for every purchase you make at Deep Discount. So if you pick up some discs or some toys or music, they have everything really. Send us a proof of purchase. We picked that up on our last. Tim used that phrase on Button. It reminds me of being a kid. Send in the box tops, but show us a picture of what you got, or just even send us an email receipt to letters@focusgroupradio.com and include your mailing address. That's letters@focusgroupradio.com, and I will send you a pair of Focus Group Radio socks. So, Mr. Bennett, taking advantage of the site-wide sale, what did you pick?
Well, it's, as you said, Shark Madness all month long, John. Sharky the Shark hasn't been around, has he? Has he been put away?
The Shark. Maybe I should bring Shark back. He had some bad press for a while there.
Did he?
Yeah, he got some bad comments. It's like, enough of the Shark.
I didn't know that. So the site-wide sale, I'm a latecomer to a lot of, particularly series sometimes. And during the unfortunate lockdown of the event, I discovered a series that everybody said I should like, and I just never, ever watched it. And now I think it's hilarious, which is Frasier, the complete series, which ran on NBC. It was a spinoff of Cheers, which I never watched either, but Kelsey Grammer, David Pierce, John Mahoney, and others are a star in this. And I didn't realize the show ran from 1993 to 2004. And it has Fraser Crane, who Kelsey Grammer leaves Boston after the Cheers stint, and goes back to Seattle and works at a radio show as a call-in radio show host for I think psychiatrist or psychologist.
And there's even a Jack Russell Terrier involved, right?
Yeah, and some of the writing, everybody said I would like it for its smartness or whatever, but I find some of it just hilarious. And but I could see where it's probably had maybe a limited appeal. I don't know, but it did well. It was on for 9 years, so it certainly.
I don't think 9-year run is limited appeal.
Yeah.
It was a popular show, Tim. This is a popular show. Great cast, great sitcom, and I'm glad.
Did you watch it when it was on?
Like you, we discovered it in reruns. It's so typical, right? Like Parks and Recreation, I discovered in rerun. I didn't discover it, but I started watching.
Watched that either.
And Frasier was a rerun. L.A. Law. Bob and I were just laughing about this the other night at dinner. Like we used to come home every night and watch L.A. Law Monday to Friday, and we never watched it when it was originally on, but only in rerun. So. That's another one that I know a lot of people. The woman I used to work with, Karen, loved L.A. Law, and I never did. But so Frasier, the complete series, you can get it for $66.49. And the full series, which is a great price, and it would go well. I have the whole collection of Seinfeld, so this would be a good addition to my library. So that's what I picked. I think you have your spring-summer viewing lined up.
Yep.
I went with TV as well, a recent TV though, and a series that I had wanted to kind of catch but never did, and it's because I think it was on the Stars Network, or I forget. It wasn't like one of the big, well, they're all big, but it wasn't like HBO or something like that. And that's what I love about Deep Discount is because, if you don't see a show or you don't stream it, or you don't have that service, you could usually pick up the packaged version of it over here at Deep Discount. And what I went with is something called American Gods, seasons 1 through 3. It's a series that is based on a book that I loved by Neil Gaiman, and it's a fantasy series, and it did air on Stars in 2017. It's Emily Browning, Crispin Glover, Bruce Langley, 26 episodes on 9 discs. And it's, as I said, it's fantasy. So there's this guy that's released from prison. Shadow Moon is his name. He takes a job as a bodyguard to the mysterious Mr. Wednesday, Ian McShane. His new employer is revealed to be actually one of the old gods of ancient deity times, kind of like Greek Roman. And if I'm, Tim's probably like, oh boy, that's not on my list.
Wow.
And the old gods are fading in favor of the new gods, which are based on technology, media, globalization. And it got some interesting reviews, and it's just kind of one of those things that I'd like to watch, but I'm not going to get stars to watch it, so I'm happy to buy it from deep discount at the site-wide shark sale. So that's what I picked. And the release this week is a movie I definitely would like to see. It got a lot of great coverage on its release. Reviews were good generally too, but the box office, this came out right when people started going back to the movies and stuff.
Right.
It's Steven Spielberg's West Side Story. Of course, it's a retelling of the original West Side Story, which is really quite a famous and award-winning film. So for this anticipated second screen take on the Bernstein-Sondheim stage classic, director Steven Spielberg and screenwriter Tony Kushner, who we love, delivered a dynamic down-and-dirty do-over with Ansel Elgort and Rachel Zegler as the budding lovers in the slums of 50s New York, whose future would be tragically challenged by the racially charged rivalry of their neighborhood street gangs. Great cast. It looked beautiful. I did not see it in theaters. I haven't watched it streaming, so I thought this would be it's a good new release, right?
Yeah, I'd be curious about it too. I often wonder though.
The retelling or the remaking?
Yeah, well, I like Steven Spielberg, but I wonder why he decided on this to retell, because it's such a
classic.
Classic. And it's almost like, would you redo Grease, or would you redo Saturday Night Live? Or would you redo, or not Saturday Night Live, Saturday Night Fever?
Fever, yeah.
Or would you redo, I mean, I know that Wizard of Oz, they tried to do some, offshoots of it, but I don't know. Some of these things, I just wonder whether
Best
they make
left
sense.
alone?
Yeah. I mean, would you redo Gone with the Wind?
No, and when it comes to West Side Story, a movie that I also did not catch, but I'm dying to see, is In the Heights, which was released to a lot of fanfare, a modern musical by Lin-Manuel Miranda. Takes place up here in Washington Heights, and I guess that's a modern-ish West Side Story. So I see your point. I mean, but as I said, this had some standout performances, especially the woman who plays Maria.
Right.
So might be worth seeing.
Yep. So head over to focusgroupradio.com and click on the Deep Discount logo. As John mentioned earlier in the show, Deep Discount's a partner of ours here, and we appreciate them. And one way to show our appreciation is to support them and support the sponsors who support our show. John this week picked American Gods, which is from a TV series. And I also chose a TV series, Frasier, the complete collection, which you can find at deep discount during the site-wide sale. And the new release this week is West Side Story with famed director Steven Spielberg. So anytime Spielberg does something, it's almost like the criterion, right? It's the seal of approval, I think. Spielberg doesn't do a bad job, I don't think, on anything, does he?
No.
So,
no, he does not.
Right, so be sure to pick that up. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we have a shop talk, which Dolly Parton gives us some advice that her mom gave her. And then also a business birthday that was given to us by one of our listeners. So stay tuned.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. Now back to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Available pretty much everywhere.
Welcome back to The Focus Group. John Nash with Tim Bennett. Focusgroupradio.com is our site. All our media is there, including the Tuesday podcast, TFG Unbuttoned. In the second half of our show, we have a business birthday, which is coming right up, and a shop talk that looks at advice that Dolly Parton got from her mom that has guided her in her career. And we like that advice. We're going to share it with you. Quick totally oddball question, Tim.
What?
Have you ever used anything like Thermacare or Icy Hot or any of these things for like a tight back or muscle pain?
All the time.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
Do they work?
Yep. Don't put it on your balls, though.
Wait a minute. I've never heard you so definitively like, yep. So I tweaked my lower back and it's a little sore. Heat helps. And a friend of mine said, just go out and get Thermacare.
You can do that. They have the patches. I mean, you have to be careful with that stuff you rub on your back. Don't then, make sure you clean your hands before you either rub your eyes or go to the bathroom and touch your unit, because then you'll be
Are you speaking from experience?
Yes. So be sure to no, but that stuff does work. It's like icy hot, or there's many of them that are on the market. But what else works too is some of that CBD oil.
Ah, yes. We had a CBD, I guess it was like it looked like a stick of deodorant or something that I got for Bob for his neuropathy. I put a little bit on my back, and I got to say, I'm always a little skeptical until 10 minutes or 15 minutes later, it was actually feeling better. And so, I can't explain it.
It feels better. It doesn't last as long as you'd like, I think, in some
didn't.
cases. But, yeah, it does certainly feel better. While you're on an offshoot, did you notice one of our listeners sent us, did you see Charles Entenmann died?
Yes. And here's the best part. Here in New York, wasn't he always perceived to be, I think a lot of people thought that he was Jewish, and because Entenmann's was very closely associated with the community. I don't think he was, but by God, Entenmann's is like, we grew up with Entenmann's, right?
Yeah, they said he inherited the business. He died at 92 in Florida. He inherited the business from his father. They were German immigrants. So maybe they were, but it started in Brooklyn. And I was thinking about all the different Entenmann's things we used to get growing up. My mother always had this go-to lemon kind of coffee cakey thing with the lemon. It was like a lemon curd inside.
I know, Zach. Was one of ours too.
Yeah, or the little Entenmann's cakes. And it used to just be kind of a New York, Connecticut, New Jersey thing. And then it went national when I didn't realize the pharmaceutical company bought them. Warner Lambert? Is that who it is?
Yeah, Warner Lambert.
Yeah. But I laughed because at the end of, so somebody had sent it to us, one of our listeners, Howard. But I laughed at the end because in his obit, the son says, "I'm going to tell you something that's pretty much a secret, and for most of my life anyway." He said, "My father didn't eat Entenmann's cake. He just wasn't a dessert guy." You imagine?
Oh my God, wasn't much of a dessert guy. It would be like
dessert guy.
It would be like one of the like if someone involved with Hershey hated chocolate, but they made the best chocolate. Yeah. Did another listener named Andy sent us a note about hamburger soup. Remember last week you were talking about going to a
truck stop in North Dakota.
In North Dakota with some woman you worked with who was in a mini skirt, and first she wanted an egg white omelet.
Right.
And you're like, look, pick something. And she's like, what's the soup of the day? And the waitress says hamburger soup. And you and I are like, oh, hamburger soup. Well, our listener, Andy, who's also a part-time resident down at Rehoboth, sent us a note and said, don't poo-poo it. It could be really delicious and a great comfort food. And he swears by a recipe from Ray Drummond, who's the Pioneer Woman, and he said it's surprisingly good. And if you want to kick it up a notch, you got to add some cayenne pepper.
Well, I'm going to try. I love hamburgers. I made sliders the other day.
Did you really miniature?
Oh my God, they were unbelievable. They were unbelievable. I can't tell you how good they were. I was very proud of myself.
Did you get little miniature slider buns for them?
So I bought the king. Remember Shaq when we used to eat? Shaq was
the Hawaiian. I bet you're going with
the great voice. I used the little Hawaiian sweet rolls. Remember Shaq used to eat Hawaiian bread all the time.
Loved it. Yeah.
And so I sliced them, and I cooked up the chopped meat in an onion, and then I put a layer of cheddar cheese down, and then I put down the chopped meat, about a pound. One of those 12 roll things takes about a pound. Then I put on my father's favorite, Velveeta, because that's going to melt better, and it was going to melt in between the little bread, right? So I put the little Velveeta on. I topped the roll, And then I put it in the oven for about 20 minutes to make sure everything melted, all the cheese melted. And I tell you, they were fantastic. The one thing I did wrong is I think I should have put foil over. The rolls got a little hard.
Oh,
so I
in the
think they
oven,
cooked a
right.
little too much in the oven. So I messed up something there. But
The oven
'cause-
took the heat took the moisture out of them, right?
right. And Marianne and I talked because Marianne made them too. She made them for a party they were having. And she did a version, I call it the lesbian version, but vegan version. She did a vegan version, and then I'm going to try some with lamb and feta.
Lamb in place of beef,
Shot meat.
right?
Yeah, and see what happens. I don't know.
Lamb sliders, I bet sounds.
I love a
isn't-
lamb burger.
I haven't had lamb in a long time. I seem to think of it as kind of rich and very tasty. It's different
Yeah.
than beef.
So I'll try
we
them.
have-
Or maybe
so-
next time you come down, I'll try them.
So thank you to all the listeners. Entenmann's, excellent. Excellent to know that the founder at 92 passed and was not a big fan of the cake.
Not a fan of the cakes.
And then our listener who recommended that we give hamburger soup a try. And it sounds like you're going to do it, Tim.
And then our listener, Kate, gave us our business birthday today.
Right on schedule.
Yeah.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
So her birthday was actually yesterday, Tuesday. So it's Marjorie Merriweather Post. So she was born March 15th, 1887, died at 86 on September 12th, 1973. An American businesswoman, socialite, philanthropist, bon vivant. She was also
I
the
love
owner
the bon vivant part.
I added that. Yeah.
I didn't think that was in Wikipedia, but anyway.
She was the owner of General Foods. I don't know why I just thought it was CW Post, but it was General Foods. So she's also known for, I thought there was something a little sketchy here about her. She was a, like people are Anglophiles. She was a Russophile. She liked all things Russian. And I think her third or fourth husband was a Soviet ambassador. So, and that she has a lot of Russian art. I don't know. Something's
Did
up.
she like all things Russian, like Imperial Russia, like Fabergé, the whole, okay.
Right. She used most of her fortune, or much of her fortune, particularly the imperial, and she collected imperial era Russian art, which is now on display at the Hillwood Museum, which was her estate in Washington, D.C. And our listener, Kate, is the runs that museum in Hillwood outside of D.C. So we'll have to go there sometime and see the museum.
The museum also has some incredible formal gardens, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, then we need to do this, yeah.
Yeah. She's also known for, she had the mansion built Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, which somebody has soiled recently. And she had given in her will, she had given the museum to the U.S. government and wanted it to become almost like a summer residence, different than Camp David, but another place for the presidents to use. And but it was never used for that. It says she willed Mar-a-Lago to the United States government in '73 as a retreat for presidents and foreign dignitaries. The mansion was not, however, used for that purpose prior to being declared a National Historic Landmark. I guess the government unloaded that thing.
Oh,
Mar-a-Lago.
had to. Yeah, because if it's private residence or private club now, yeah.
Yeah. So so she was an only child. And so at age 27, following her father's death in 1914, she became the owner of the Postum Cereal Company, which was founded in 1895. And at the time, she was the wealthiest woman in the United States. So she inherited, at that time, $20 million, which is the equivalent of, they said now, about $526 million.
Wow.
In 2020 dollars.
Wow.
She went to the Mount Vernon Seminary College, which is George Washington University, and she kept close contact with them throughout the years as a benefactor and so forth. Was also the first female trustee at the college. It's pretty cool. She said that after she became a director, she, along with her husband, second husband, E.F. Hutton, money marries money marries money, John.
Oh my God. Yeah, money attracts money, right?
Money marries money. She began expanding the business and acquired American food companies such as Hellman's Mayonnaise, Jell-O, Baker's Chocolate, Maxwell House Coffee, and many more. So in 1929, the Postum Cereal Company was renamed General Foods Corporation. While she was on one of her yachts, Husser, she came across the innovation of Clarence Birdseye. And Birdseye, of course, developed a new way to preserve food for freezing. So she foresaw the advantages of frozen food and bought Birdseye, which
Wow.
became a success.
Okay.
I wish she listened to the focus group and bought the focus group. It could have been a success.
Well, she would have to be alive and on a yacht and hearing the show right now, right?
Exactly. So she's certainly very much a philanthropist, gave to lots of great causes, funded a U.S. Army hospital in France in World War I, gave lots of money to the Boy Scouts, to Salvation Army, a number of other sort of philanthropic causes. One thing I thought was kind of different, in 1966, Long Island University, she became an honorary house mother to one of the fraternities.
Does honorary mean that it's just an honorarium, but she doesn't have to actually be at the house, right?
Well, said she often hosted the fraternity brothers for brunches. She served as honorary house mother of the
I love
college's...
the way you let that shoe drop.
Well, I think it's a little odd, quite frankly, but she apparently was quite involved with fraternities. Sigma Beta Epsilon, Sigma Alpha Epsilon. She said she only had girls, so she referred to the fraternity men as her sons-in-laws or as her boys, and they called her Mother Marjorie. She gifted $100,000 to the national...
I like your, pauses in radio are always very... You got to think about the pause.
I read that in the bio and I thought that's interesting. I don't know.
Okay.
I was in a fraternity. I don't think our house, I was in a fraternity, but our cooks were all female and they were kind of our, home away from home moms. But we didn't have an honorary house mother. So I thought that was interesting. One of my favorite places, the John F. Kennedy Center for Performing Arts, she gifted $100,000 to the National Cultural Center, which later became known as the JFK Center for Performing Arts. She's given money to the National Symphony, and of course a number of other great causes. She bequeathed most of a big chunk of her jewelry to the Smithsonian, and it was part of a display in the Harry Winston exhibit. And then, as I said, she also had this huge collection of... according to the Hermitage Museum and Foundation, she was a Russophile and had probably one of the greatest collections of Imperial and Russian art. There was some question about how she acquired some of it, but she said she would never took advantage or anything, that things were bought or things were given, but some people were critics of how they may have got some of the works out of Russia or the former Soviet Union. But I thought it was odd that her third husband, maybe not odd, but her third husband was a guy named Joseph Davis, who was the ambassador to the Soviet Union. If I read that correct. Yes, that's correct. So her first husband, I didn't realize this, maybe there's money for me, Edward Bennett. Close.
Maybe. I love the way you just see your name and you think, hey, I'm bequeathed somewhere, right?
Well, listen, she married an investment banker, Edward Bennett Close of Greenwich, Connecticut, so nearby us, John. Mm-hmm. They divorced in 1919. They had two daughters, Adelaide and Eleanor. And Edward got married again, and he was the grandfather to Glenn Close. Again, money begets money, right?
So and then Hollywood power, yeah.
So then she married Edward Francis Hutton. When E.F. Hutton talks, we listen. Wasn't that how that was?
Yes, I do.
So they had another daughter, Nadinia Hutton, and better known as Dina Merrill was her stage name. Then she married Joseph Davies, was her third husband. They had no children, but they were together for 20 years. He was the American ambassador to the Soviet Union. Then she married Herbert May, and he was a former master of the Foxhounds at the Rolling Rock Hunt Club in Pennsylvania. That ended in divorce, too. It's apparently difficult to get along with 4 times.
I've been keeping count. Is there a 5th?
No, just 4.
4 marriages.
She died. Yeah. So they divorced in 1964, and then I guess that's when she became this honorary house mother.
Ah. Mother Marjorie.
Kate's going to kill us.
Or she'll appreciate it, yeah.
She died at her Hillwood estate in D.C. on September 12th after a long illness, and she was buried there. She left the bulk of her estate to her 3 daughters, Adelaide, Eleanor, and Nadinia. And but I had no idea she was the wealthiest woman in the world at the time. And God bless her. At that age, you think about it, 19, the early 1900s, taking over the business like that, and having the foresight to acquire businesses. And I will say too, I always appreciate these folks who have made lots of money that they give it away to
give
good
back.
causes. They
Yeah,
give back.
I'm
For education and healthcare and children's
galleries
causes.
and museums
Yeah.
and things that we can appreciate for years. I agree with you. Good business birthday. Thank you to Kate for that.
I've been watching The Gilded Age. Have you started that?
Yes, yeah, we've not watched the last two episodes, but
This reminds me of that time, kind of, huh? I guess, right?
well, New York it's the late 1800s.
Is that a real house up there where they show that? Off
It's a lot of
Central
digital
Park?
work they've done, and
Is
there
it?
are some brownstones that exist from that time period that they've shot in. But the thing that amazed me about the Gilded Age was the language and the way they speak. And we talked to a friend of ours named Lucy, who used to work at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and I said, "Hey, Lucy, is that actually accurate the way they?" Oh, yeah. She said the wealthy in New York back in those days wanted to be like the aristocracy in England. So they didn't have the accent, but they carried on with these, well, have you come to visit me today? Or
Right.
whatever some of the stuff is. But we're enjoying it. So are you liking it so far?
I am. But that, the language thing I picked up too. I mean, it was a much
Very formal.
yeah, and the way the way they've string language together, words
Yep.
together, is not certainly something that we're used to hearing. It's almost like reading Shakespeare to a certain extent.
Well said. Very well said.
But but it reminds me also of the early starlets. I think you and I had talked about this one time before, where so many of the early film stars had that kind of almost Boston accent, right? Oh, my
Didn't
father. It
Didn't
was
they
all,
make it up? Wasn't it Kate Hepburn and Cary
Yeah.
Grant? And they called it the Mid-Atlantic.
Yeah.
Isn't that like the made-up accent?
But there was
the
right,
Mid-Atlantic?
there was some right, and it was some sort of. If you watch Father Knows Best and reruns, you could hear the actress who plays the mother there has it down pat. Your father's not coming to dinner. It's. I wish people would speak like that.
I need to look this up, and I may sound like an ass saying it, but I wonder if Mid-Atlantic literally means the middle between England and the United States. Whatever accent, like if you blended the two, that's the Mid-Atlantic. Because I always associate it with a region of the country, but it really is a made-up phrase for someone's accent.
Right.
Anyhow, moving on, folks, we have a shop talk for you, and it comes to us from none other than the amazing Dolly Parton. And Dolly Parton basically credits her mother with giving her 6 words of advice that she has used throughout her career to kind of define the guardrails of her success. And the 6 words were, always keep something back for you. Those 6 words have helped the 76-year-old country music superstar maintain success through 6 decades of show business. Parton told Apple Music Country's The Kaylee Bannon Show, I think I got that right, on Tuesday. The phrase, which applies equally to business and work-life balance, essentially means give to others, but meet your own financial and emotional needs first. And Parton said any young person could benefit from that lesson. And she said in quotes, you can give what you've got, but don't give it all away. I pray also that God will, give me enough to share and enough to spare when it comes to my money, but also to myself. Let me share everything I can, but let me keep me. Now, this is kind of an interesting one. You liked this one. I sent you the note about this.
I did. I think you could. First, I read it and I thought, oh, it could be selfish. Maybe it sounded selfish or something. And then I thought, but it was essentially taking care of yourself, taking care of your needs, and then sharing your wealth. And of course, it says Dolly Parton's worth what, $350 million. So
Yep.
she's got some to share. Most notably, she gave the money to help with the COVID-19 vaccine research, which I thought was wonderful. Someone else who had a lot of money didn't do anything. So, and she says she only commits to projects that she thinks could benefit from her skill set. So, I've always admired Dolly Parton because what was her famous quote? It costs a lot of money to look this cheap.
Is she also the performer who said you have to be your own manager?
Yeah. Yeah.
So she's got a lot of like shrewd.
Homespun logic, right?
Yeah, it's an anecdotal business sense that she basically has leveraged quite smartly. And I read the article and I thought this reminds me of this famous phrase people always, or this it's phrasing that comes around, and I think it goes something like this: "You can't love someone else until you love yourself."
Right.
So here it's kind of a flip on that. You can't share and take care of other people unless your house is in order and you
Right.
could take care of yourself, right? And it
You know,
does
she
make sense.
right, and she always says that she kept her private life private, and because people had told her to change her look and all these things, she said, "No, I'm not going to." And once people see my talent, then they'll understand. And and later, recently I've heard, and there were rumblings. I don't know if you've heard this as well, but some people, because they never knew much, or and they don't know much about her private life, other than she said she was married, but she never really saw the husband. What some people speculated was, could she have been a lesbian or bisexual or something? Have you ever heard that?
I have, and I don't want to.
It's
I
almost
just
like
don't think it.
Oprah,
Yeah,
right? It's
she
kind of
had.
like it's like it's so far down the list, right?
Well,
You'd
it's
be like,
also like nature abhors a vacuum, and apparently pop culture hates a vacuum as well.
right,
So when you can't find something out about someone, why not invent it?
right.
Right?
And I look at her boobies now. I mean, back when we were growing up, they were really something. I remember Johnny Carson used to talk about it, but now, compared to what some of these people are doing to themselves now, she looks kind of normal.
Yeah. And as I'm looking at her picture, I'm reminded of the fact that about 2 weeks ago, Bob and I caught the best little whorehouse in Texas on TCM. And we tuned in right when they were doing this musical number where all the football teams coming into a locker room, and
Oh
it's
yeah,
and they're singing about going to the chicken ranch, which is what Dolly Parton was the mistress of. And Bob and I are just staring at the TV. Our mouths are practically at the floor because it's one of the gayest musical numbers I've ever seen. And Bob's like, none of these guys are football players because they
oh
all
my
had the
God.
bodies of dancers, right? But they played it up, and they were straight boys going to the chicken ranch. So
Yeah, that's like you ever want to see anything really campy bad? Is the Olivia Newton-John "Let's Get Physical" video too, where
oh my God, yeah,
they're
that
doing
one,
the
yeah,
aerobics. She talked. I remember she had said I saw some documentary with her where she has the fake nails, and she said she used those with 9 to 5 working
yes,
9 to that was the music from the almost that kind of
clickety
typewriter
clickety
clickety
keyboard,
click.
yeah.
So she had to do that for the song. But she's one of those folks. I don't know if we have them anymore, right? She reminds me of Cher, and
Hmm.
Dolly Parton.
Larger than life
Um,
performers who are somehow warm and accessible, but we don't know everything about them. They're not all over social media all the time. Yeah.
but yeah, do we have anybody like that that's coming up? You know what I mean? You see these people that had talent and that were independent, and particularly independent women at the time in the 60s, 70s when they got their start. I don't know if we have people like that now, if there's singers like that now or performers that have that same sort of iconic bend to them. I mean, because Dolly
Um,
and Cher were never. I mean, Cher had the variety show, but you would never.
do you know two people that I admire, like Lady Gaga and Taylor Swift?
I was going to say Lady Gaga might be. Yeah.
And Gaga, she made a point of being different with every album and being and experimenting with fashion, and she's been a vocal advocate for the LGBTQ community. We were even woven into many of her songs. And then Taylor Swift, like I've seen her interviewed, and she is one sharp businesswoman, and I think
Right.
she knows the power of her talent. And I think she operates with it. She seems to be someone who operates with integrity. So I do think there are people out there that are like Dolly. I don't know if Taylor Swift's going to open Dollywood. I mean, like, you can't Taylor
What
Wood.
about
I mean,
Madonna? Would you put Madonna in that?
I used to put Madonna in that category for a long time. I mean, look at how she changed and
Right.
transformed our culture, right? Madonna lately, Madge, when she's showing us booty pictures because she can at 60 something. I think what I feel about Madonna lately is, and I think this must be a horrible thing for any celebrity, is how do you transition from being one of the most important celebrities in the world to just being, Madonna, living in
Right.
your later years? So looking for relevancy is a very interesting dilemma for a lot of these people.
Well, that's what and I'm glad you said that, because if you look at Cher's been doing, she's like Elton John with the goodbye tours. But
the last of the last,
right, the second to last goodbye tour. Yeah. But in Vegas, she will still come out at 70 whatever years old, and that very revealing outfits, but doesn't make an issue out of it. It's almost not like she's exploiting it, even though that she's coming out in just a nylon with something, covering her hooch. But Madonna, for some reason, does it differently, and it's almost it turns people off. Cher just does it. And I guess maybe we just accept it because she's like, this is who I am. Whereas Madonna almost seems to do it for shock value. I don't know.
Yeah, and to maybe experiment with a media platform she had no idea. None of us, when Madonna became big, social media wasn't big.
No.
You read about Madonna in the papers. You saw a concert tour, like you saw her.
Well, that Truth or Dare documentary was incredible. And then she made a big deal about the, like a virgin with the Catholic Church being against her and all that sort of stuff. But no, we certainly grew up with her. But it's funny you said that, because I was wondering whether Madonna, I don't think Madonna has had the same lasting star power as maybe a Dolly or Cher.
Different cachet, very different cachet. Yeah.
So, but it was a good shop talk. So thank you. So everybody, be sure to catch our podcast, which is TFG Unbuttoned, every Tuesday. You could find this show as well as all of our audio and video programming at focusgroupradio.com. If you go there, you'll also see our sponsors. Deep Discount is a sponsor of ours here on the Focus Group. This week, they have the release of West Side Story. It's also a site-wide sale. John picked a series called American Gods, and I picked Frasier, the full collection. And you can find all of that there, as well as other media at deep discounts. So be sure to find them on our website and start shopping away. We hope all of you have a great week. Remember, don't text and drive, arrive alive. We'll see you on Tuesday. Take care.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.